Hi everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we are comparing achieving loudness using a compressor on the mix bus or using multiple compressors on our channels. I'm going to demonstrate this using a very simple multi-track project loaded in Cakewalk by BandLab, and the song is Don't Let Go by James May. I chose this song because it only comprises of 13 tracks minus 1, which is the bass DI, which I'm not going to use. So 12 tracks makes it easy to explain. But the song is a beautiful one. But first, let me show you my setup. The first 13 tracks are the recorded material, which they are forwarded to the mix bus, which is this one here. And the output of the mix bus is being sent to 3 auxiliary buses: auxiliary 1, auxiliary 2, and auxiliary 3. The reason for that is that I want to record the 3 different scenarios. Scenario number 1, no compressor on the channels or on the mix bus, so we can not only hear but also visually see what the dynamics of the song looks like. Auxiliary number 2, we're going to use the bus compressor and we're going to compare the audible difference as well as the visual difference. And auxiliary 3 will be the one which will have compressors on all of the channels, less the mix bus. And in conclusion, we're gonna audibly hear the difference and compare them, as well as visually. The compressor that I'm gonna use, and I'm gonna use the same compressor on all of my channels, including the mix bus, is the Frontier from the 16 group. Of course, you can use any compressor, whether native in your DAW or a third party, whichever one you prefer. I've just chosen Frontier for its simplicity, clarity, and effectiveness to demonstrate the loudness comparison between a mix bus compressor and all the channels having the compressor. Of course, for this to work, I have no other plugin on any of the channels. The only plugin on each of the channels, as you can see right at the top here, are the Frontier. And one other plugin that I have used so we can actually see the loudness level each time we play and record the scenario, which will allow us to clearly and accurately see the loudness level of each of the scenario. To demonstrate this also, the method that I have taken is that all the compressors, I want them to have a gain reduction of minus 24 dB. So on my mix bus, the compressor will reduce minus 24 dB at peaks. So I've adjusted the threshold for that level. Then I also, to save time, gone ahead and adjusted all the levels of the threshold for each of the channels so that I can get at peak minus 24 dB of gain reduction. Then I've gone ahead and done some balancing of the song. So this way we're going to compare whether there is going to be any difference by compressing minus 24 dB at peak on the mix bus and minus 24 dB of gain reduction on each of the channels, less any compression on the mix bus. So in simple terms, whether compressing the stereo bus is more effective than compressing each of the individual instruments recorded on each of the tracks. And during the recording of each of the scenarios, I will not be touching any of the faders. This will give somewhat a little bit more accurate comparison between each scenario. So let's start with scenario number 1 is the raw tracks being recorded onto a stereo bus. And that is our auxiliary number 1. No compressors turned on, either on the channels or on the mix bus. Recording. I've got my Yulin loudness meter up. Of course, I'm not going to let you sit all throughout the song. I'm just going to do a quick fast forward and then we're going to see the levels on our loudness meter. We will come back to these numbers in the conclusion, but let's have a quick recap. We have minus 17.8 LUFS integrated, and we have the loudness range of 5.6 LU, and the real-time dynamics of the song is 9.6 LU, and the average dynamic of this song is 16.7 LU. We had a short-term maximum of minus 14 LUFS and a true peak of minus 1.1 dB. And this is achieved by only having a mixing, no plugins whatsoever. So scenario number 2 is we're gonna record same song again, but this time I'm gonna enable the mix bus compressor. Let's move the loudness meter into our correct one. We're going to mute that for recording. Just going to move this here so we can visually see that as well. Oops, I think I need to pin this one right here and pin this one about here, just so that we can actually see the meters. Reset, and we are ready to record number 2. And we now have our second scenario recorded, which is the compressor only on the mix bus. We have integrated LUFS of minus 12.8, and our loudness range is 4.3 LU, and the real-time dynamics 12.1 LU, a momentary maximum LUFS of minus 8.6 LUFS, and short-term maximum of minus 10 LUFS. Now we did have a true peak of minus 0.6 dB, which is still fine, still under the 0 dB, but it's quite close. And let's find out where that peak came from, which was not obviously existed previously. Now because our compressor is compressing and it's got automatic gain, it might have increased it. The way we can find out is we can go into the metering right here. We can right click and say go to peak. Let's close this, and the peak was right there. And let's have a quick listen to that part. Solo that. Yep, we can just about see it as well, a peak that is appearing there. Right, that peak also probably appears around there. So that's the peak that's how you can find out the peaks. And that's the guitar. So we can certainly, when we're doing another mix, we can go ahead and tame that peak. So because overall we had really good run of minus 1.4 dB as a true peak. And in the next mix, we can certainly tame that, and we will have a nice clear audio with enough headroom. Looking very briefly on the visuals, we can certainly see how there's more of the waveforms. Now we're going to listen to this later on as well, so wait for the conclusion. Let's go ahead and do scenario 3, which is compressors on all the channels, less on the mix bus. One thing we need to make sure when we are using the method of compressors on all of the channels is gain matching. That means the input signal and the output signal match when you bypass the plugin. And that's what I have done. So the inputs and the output volume does not change from the original when the compressor is turned on and off. So let's keep the base one, which plays all along, so we can actually see the meter, what is happening. I'm just going to pin that, and we can come down now, and got that enabled. Let's turn our metering on, and we are ready to record our third scenarios, compressors on all of the channels, less on the mix bus. Let's have a look at the results of our loudness using compressors on all of the channels. We have integrated value of minus 18.3 LUFS. Now, I should remind you that since we don't have any compressor on the mix bus and there has been a level matching on each of the channels when the compressor is applied, we should get very similar levels to the raw mix, our first scenario. And our first scenario had minus 17.8 LUFS, so we are very close to that level. We have loudness range of 4.2 LU, and in our row 1 it was 5.6 LU, so we have reduced the loudness range. In real-time dynamics, here we have 16.1 LU, where it was 9.6 in our row 1, and average of 14.3 LU, average dynamic, and we had 16.7 LU. Our true peak here is minus 4 dB. In our row 1, we had minus 1.1 dB true peak and minus 0.6 dB true peak with our compressor on the mix bus. So what does the metering tell us before we even listen to the music or the 3 different scenarios that we just mixed? Well, it tells us that the raw mix and the compressor, the LUFS level, the integrated one, is pretty much the same, very close. Matter of fact, this is a little bit lower as well at minus 18.3 LUFS, but we also have much higher headroom. The headroom is the true peak level, which is minus 4 dB compared to minus 1.1 dB we had. Now we have certainly reduced the loudness range as well from 9.6 to 4.2. We virtually halved the dynamics, so that means that our perceived loudness has gone up without increasing the LUFS level. And comparing to the mix bus compressor, where we had LUFS of 12.8, we still have very similar loudness range of 4.3. Now we have 4.2, so we're very close. But our peak in our second scenario was 0.6 dB. I hope that makes sense to you. If it does, leave a comment below and let me know. And for the conclusion, let's have a listen the recorded material of all the 3 tracks, because that is the main important thing, how they actually sound to our ears. And let's put the numbers aside. Now, one thing I will do is I will do level matching of all of these 3. As you can see, visually we can tell that the row first scenario and the last scenario are very similar. But our middle one, which has the compressor on the mix bus, has higher level. So let's do some volume matching and then we come back and have a listen. And the reason I want to do volume matching so that we don't trick our ears, because the levels are different, because our ears always perceive louder signals better. All the level matching has been done looking at the average true peak level of each of the recorded material. And for the first clip, I've done a gain reduction of 0.3 dB because it was around 4.2, 4.3 dB true peak until we reached this peak right here, which was the guitar, if you recall. So I have taken that into consideration, and I've reduced 3.4 dB for our second scenario to match from 0.6 dB. And of course, I left my last one as the initial reference on 0 volume, which was minus 4 dB. So let's have a listen and compare the audio.
Don't let go of me now. Take hold of my hand. Walk me to some sweet and holy land. All the rose and wisteria it the little things that we said, or those little ways we hid? Is there a part of the fire that's sad as flame blown out? There is a pool beneath this gym. What better time to jump in to the deep, mysterious place beneath our skin?
Well, I hope and I'm pretty sure you can hear the difference between scenario 1, scenario 2 and scenario 3. And you can also see the waveform of each of those scenarios. We can see the raw one has good dynamics, and of course in scenario 3, using compressors on each of the channels, we control those dynamics, some of the peaks, but still left enough room as well as headroom. Where in our second scenario, where we had the only compressor on the mixed bus, it really compressed it down, because instead of spreading all of the compression and squeezing the dynamics on each instrument individually and share that compression and reducing the dynamics, we are relying on just one compressor to do that job, which can't really do as good as we want. Again, this is a personal preference. Of course, I would really prefer the third scenario to my ears than the second scenario. It's just squashed and just really up front, where the first row obviously is raw mix with the full dynamics of the band, which is recorded live. Let me know what you think. Use the comment section below. If this helped you to understand how loudness and dynamics work. If it did, let me know below. If this video was helpful, make sure you give me the thumbs up, subscribe as always, and thanks for watching and have a great time making music, and I'll catch you in the next one.